Guys, welcome back to Rev University. So good to see you. We have very special guests with us today, power couple, Jeremy and Jen Brockbank. A little bit about each of them. Jeremy is the owner of Brands Rising, consulting and product sales firm that has run sales for over 500 retail brands worldwide. He built Goal Zero, which was the fastest growing brand on the Inc. 5000, and he took them from $100,000 to $17 million in 2 years. He's the president of Kiss Sticks Lip Balm. Does anyone know Kiss Sticks in here? Yeah? Okay, me too. I flipped out when I learned this about Jeremy. So he's the president of Kiss Sticks Lip Balm, which Mark Cuban called his best investment of 2012. Kiss Sticks at the time also won United States White House for Best Small Business. He worked with Shark Tank's Lori Greiner, has been a professor of business marketing at UVU, and former consulting for an $11 billion venture capital firm called Point72. His wife, Jen, is also a freaking powerhouse. I mean, you guys are in for a treat. She's the co-owner at Brands Rising, has traveled extensively, including living in Germany, Guam, the Philippines, and Ghana, and she is the chief experience officer at Volcanic Retail. And Volcanic Retail is transforming the retail industry. So before I invite them up here, let's learn a little bit more about Volcanic Retail.
Being your company's buyer is a rewarding and difficult job. You spend half your life traveling to trade shows, deal with mountains of emails, all while trying to keep your stock full with up-to-date products. You need a better way to stay organized and source the most cutting-edge products that get your company the best possible return. You need VolcanicRetail.com, the brand discovery platform that gives buyers the tools they need to simplify their jobs, all from the comfort of your desk. It's the brand discovery platform with all the tools that simplify the way brands and buyers do business 24/7, 365 days a year. VolcanicRetail.com has hundreds of categories and millions of products connecting you to your new favorite vendors in a matter of seconds. Not only the brands you're interested in, but the brands other retailers have vetted and vouched for. With VolcanicRetail.com, you can prioritize your buying with our search and filtering tools, and our sophisticated AI technology will recommend which brands you should be onboarding to gain and keep the advantage. We make it easy to discover products. There are no limits when finding the products you need when using our filtering features and searchability tools. What are you looking for? Clean ingredients, locally made goods, or maybe you want to buy from or support a certain demographic? VolcanicRetail.com helps you zero in on your buying needs in a matter of seconds. You don't have to sort through a pile of marketing info and endless sales pitches. Just search for what you want, find it, and start the buying cycle. VolcanicRetail.com is also a unique social media platform designed for the retail community. VolcanicRetail.com makes it even easier to engage with and follow the vendors that keep your shelves stocked and your registers full. You will constantly be informed of every innovation to keep you on top of your game and your category cutting edge. And with VolcanicRetail.com, you don't even need to track down every communication. Was that quote sent via text, email, or did I write it down? With VolcanicRetail.com, you get access to a sophisticated and user-friendly messaging system. All your contacts, communications, and quotes can be in one place. As a buyer, you're being pulled in a million directions, but VolcanicRetail.com has you covered. So when you're multitasking, all of your important info stays right where you need it. Don't let shifting categories slow you down. Instantly pick up the saved dialogues from previous category managers' conversations, eliminating the frustration of starting from scratch. Volcanic Retail's internal messaging system saves all conversations. You can transfer previous work from different category managers when onboarding for your new category. VolcanicRetail.com helps eliminate redundant work and conversations by allowing you to post buying calendars, update your buying status, and greenlighting conversations to happen so you're only receiving messages when you are ready. Keeping vendors and potential vendors notified of your buying status, buying calendars, and category requirements will eliminate the need to answer the same questions over and over again. Go to VolcanicRetail.com today to streamline your job and stock your shelves.
Please give a warm welcome to Jeremy and Jen Brockbank.
Being your company's buyer is...
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. How are you today? How is your new year? How were the holidays?
It's great.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much.
We finally got our kids back to school yesterday, so our holiday begins today. Yeah.
You have a lot of kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
got
we have a lot of kids.
Yes, and a new one, 4 months old.
Yeah, so we just had our
Congratulations.
7th baby, a little girl. So yeah, thank you. We have 3 girls and 4 boys.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
What a fun family. And also fun that they're back in school. So
fun.
Very
I'm
fun.
sure it's fun for you now, yes. So let's talk about entrepreneurship. Was entrepreneurship always the dream? Did you always dream of owning your own business? Or how did you come to be where you are?
No, I think when I did my undergrad, there was like entrepreneurship classes, but I always kind of like envisioned like door-to-door charlatans. And so I'm a business major. I'm not an entrepreneur major. And so I knew very little, but it was not something that I thought I'd be in long term. But I mean, it really fit my personality and my skill set.
So how did you find it? What did you go to school for, if not for business or entrepreneurship?
Well, I did business as undergrad, and then I did a kind of a unique path with my master's. I worked for the Oklahoma Sooners athletic department, and did my master's to be an athletic director for a place like Oklahoma, and it was great and fun. Loved the career, and basically 08 happened. The financial collapse happened, and we had left Oklahoma, and we just assumed we were going to go work here at BYU or at Florida's, who we were also talking to, and basically all the universities went on a hiring freeze, and so we were just like, well, we just got to get a job.
Okay.
So we took a job, and it was a really lowly company, and we started from there and got into retail, and we really liked it. So we just kind of hung in there and started working for more and more retail brands, and then eventually started Ant Hill Retail and Brands Rising, and eventually led to Volcanic.
So immediately changes and shifts and pivots in what you imagined your career would look like. And
Yeah.
you two were together at the time already. Mm-hmm. How was that for you, Jen?
Well, I think we both have a lot of grit. Like we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it work. So I think that was one of the things we had to I think another thing that we're really good at is being loyal to each other. So believing in each other and just investing fully in each other. So I just knew we were gonna figure it out, even though it kind of sucked at the beginning.
Yeah, props to her. I mean, she married this guy, and this guy's just changing his mind real quick. And so anyway, I was really, really fortunate that she was willing and open-minded and doubled down on the situation.
And can I ask what this job was that you ended up finding in 2008?
I'll let you answer.
So the first company that we worked for in retail sold cardboard toilets. And I know that's a really popular industry. A lot of money.
Very popular.
Yeah. And honestly, it was like impossible. So as soon as, if you can sell cardboard toilets. In fact, I just remember going to like the first outdoor retail show, and a buyer from Target walked by, and I'm like, how do I even present this? Like, and feel confident, but
And it's kind of funny because I didn't even really understand. I had lived this international experience growing up. I was always in these third world countries and things. So to me, like a cardboard toilet, that's like a very
fit humanitarian need.
Yeah, a very good necessity in a humanitarian situation. For me, I didn't actually realize it was like kind of laughable or people are patting me on my head a little bit.
I did. I knew.
Yeah, I was talking to an older woman, and she was like, "So what does your husband do?" And I was like, "Oh, he sells cardboard toilets." And she's like, "Oh, honey, that's nice."
That was the proper response.
So yeah, it was quite the adventure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we made a big jump though from cardboard toilets to retail. How did you get into the retail space? What led you there?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was first we just started trying to sell that product to like outdoor stores and humanitarians, and we did. I mean, eventually we sold to places like FEMA, but I think our next company became more notable. Goal Zero was starting out, and they needed a salesperson, so we gave it a shot, and we did well. Put them into Target, Lowe's, Office Depot, Home Depot, Best Buy, Walmart, ran their international, and it kind of boomed. And then I'm like, I guess I kind of like this retail stuff, and so worked for a couple more brands internally.
If nothing else, the cardboard toilets really helped us learn how to hustle, and just go. You don't need to think about it too much. Just do it.
Yeah, that was like, it was kind of funny. We relay like the story of how on the way to work, like the job was really super tough to sell, obviously. And so I'd have to like put on some like AC/DC and pump myself up in the morning, like, I'm going to get these guys to buy this product. And that's kind of what it was. But
someday we're going to have to do like a parody video of you, like, pumping yourself
I mean,
up to go
honestly,
sell it for
maybe
our
we'll
kids.
turn some on as you exit the stage. We should have done it to bring you up, but we'll turn some on as you exit.
It's important that our kids know, like, this is where you came from. Like, we do this. We grind. We do this, like, the hard stuff, the ugly stuff, So, yeah, that's something we want our kids to know.
Let's woo and clap for
There
that.
we go.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned trade shows a few times, and in our previous conversation we had earlier this week, you mentioned that there's been a lot of changes in the trade show industry over the last 10 years. Can you talk to what some of those are and how it affects entrepreneurs?
Yeah, just speaking with AJ a minute ago, RevRoad looks like you have 60 companies in your portfolio, and I'm imagining a lot of them are product-based. So universally, what we realized after we worked for the first 5 or 6 retail brands, and before we started Anthill, is, oh my gosh, like, every single company is having the same issues with trying to get their products into stores. And so traditionally what happened is you have about 150 retail trade shows in the United States. And typically it was just kind of, it's set up kind of like a garage sale where you just see, if you're a buyer, kind of walking down an aisle and you have no idea who these people are, what they're offering. And that's how they used to source. But with the advent of like social media like Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube, buyers have been sourcing products via social media sites. The problem is those sites are built for end consumers. So all the information that a buyer needs to if you want to find out what's the operational cost, what's the margins, who's their CEO, what are new products being released, that's not shared on their social. And so really what we needed to do is augment and create something that could help buyers source products a lot quicker and a lot easier. So I think I think all the brand CEOs and sales staff that are in here or watching online, they realize how difficult it is to get a product into stores. And retailers are in the same boat, right? I mean, a lot of them have lost all their margins to Amazon, and it's kind of like the quickest to the bottom. And really we wanted to create a platform that allowed them to be able to compete margin-wise, where they could find products specifically built or recommended using AI technology and predictive analytics for them, rather than kind of the old Shark Tank model, right? Of like, well, these guys have a good pitch, let's just hope this company works. What we're saying is, now, we're going to run analytics. We're going to see what the buyers are liking, what they're hearting.
Make it a lot more sophisticated and easy to use.
Yeah, it's just a lot less of the guessing game.
So you eliminated the guessing game of buyers connecting with brands, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are buyers looking for as entrepreneurs, say RevRoad portfolio companies, are looking to get into retail, into big stores? What can they prep for that buyers are looking for?
Well, there's different white spaces in every category. And so a lot of them, most importantly, if I was a buyer, I'd want to make sure that I'm selling a product that has product awareness and one that I can count on to keep my shelves full. Otherwise, that's just where your revenue is lost. So a lot of times you can kind of separate out a lot of the retailers by those that are willing to pioneer new products and those that are like Target and they just don't pioneer. And so it varies depending on the type of chain that you're at. But what you have to know as a brand is there's going to be stores out there that are going to fit your need, but you have to know who they are. So like if I was to like step back and kind of give like a 30,000-foot view, if you're a company and you're based overseas, and let's just say you created some Kickstarter product, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, most of my funding comes from end consumers that are in the United States. And not a lot of them are coming from Belgium or wherever I'm living, right? And so what they realize is, okay, the bread basket's obviously overseas, the United States. Now the question is how can I get my products over there and know first off what the retail buyers want the product, and after that what the end consumers want the product. But they realize pretty quickly that the United States is an ideal place for many reasons. Like if I was in Australia and I wanted to, if I started a grocery product, it's very centralized. I could either sell to like Woolworths or Kohl's, otherwise I'm an e-commerce product. In the United States, in grocery, there's 340 regional or national chains. So your chance of success are a lot higher. And so really there's retailers that are built specifically for you, but the difficulty for a lot of these people when they just first start a product is they're, okay, I'm gonna Wikipedia the top 100 grocery stores in the United States. Well, first off, there's a lot more than 100 out there, and those are the toughest ones to get into. So you really need to go a lot deeper than that and start off on mom and pops and specialty or wherever you need to go. And I think the other part to it is you have to know what that chain specializes in, right? So like some, kind of sticking with the grocery analogy, some chains are gonna specialize very heavily in toothpaste. And they got 7 or 8 different SKUs. And what you're doing is you're trying to take out the weakest SKU. You're not gonna replace the other ones, but you might take out Crest or Colgate's 7th or 8th best-selling SKU, while some other ones have only 2 toothpaste that they sell. And you're gonna waste your time if you're gonna be going after those. And so what happens is a lot of times when you launch a company, you have to really prove sales really quickly. And the best thing to do is go, not kind of waste your time on people that aren't gonna be ultimate purchasers for your company anyway.
So we have to break through the noise as well, right? It's already hard enough to know what the buyers are wanting and to cater to the buyers and to make sure you're catering to the right store, whether it's a grocery store, a specialty store, a mom and pop, or a chain, right? But how do we break through the noise of the competition that's at the first step before you even get to the buyers?
I think really what you're trying to do is at the very beginning when you start a product, is you want to really pin down who your ideal customer is, right? Like, is she a 35-year-old woman driving a Subaru in San Francisco, right? Or whatever the deal is. And really catering to them specifically and getting them to be really big advocates of your product. And so really where retail always should start is online and in boutiques and in small mom and pops, and really getting those people to buy in to your story. What the biggest common mistake for brands that just launched within the previous year is, all right, let's go after Kohl's, let's go after Walmart, and it's just like, that's not the right approach, right? I mean, because you're not going to get on the shelves first off, and when you do, people aren't going to be purchasing your products, and really you have to have the long-term game of like, okay, how can I listen to my some of these different customers or some of these different stores and help them sell through the product? How do I educate the customers that they're seeing in their stores so that the managers, they know what's going on with their product, they can help sell it. So really education is super important.
And if you go first for like those Targets and Walmarts and things, and you don't have good sell-through because you haven't done that properly, the little steps first, you will like damage your brand further, and your chances of getting in those like stronger stores with a solid foothold, you'll damage your chance because they'll see that the sell-through was really low in that one store that you thought was like the crown jewel. And so you definitely want to be prepared. You want to have like those little baby steps first so you can prove sell-through, because that is the bottom line for these buyers.
So we saw a video about Volcanic Retail, but I'd love to hear it from both of you. What is Volcanic Retail?
Yeah, it's a cloud-based SaaS platform that it's a dual-way platform. It connects retail brands with retail buyers. Mm-hmm. And so right now, none of this type of stuff previously existed, but it gives you the opportunity to put your product out there so buyers can look through your page, your social site that's on Volcanic. They can learn really quickly on your capabilities. They can read reviews from previous retailers that had already sold your product. They can find really quick vendor information of like, okay, what are these terms? Is this going to be a good fit for me even to want to greenlight and start the conversation? And then obviously it gets quite a bit more complex than that, but it's really fast tracks the retail buyer's time. So like if I'm a buyer and I'm buying for REI, I'm getting 100 or 200 emails per week of companies I don't know who they are. And really, it gets super convoluted. And really what I think most people don't realize is buyers are super busy. Most of their job isn't just sourcing new products. It's being a category manager of products that are already in the store and making sure they're fulfilling their orders, right? And so the last thing I really have time to do is search all these different products and just kind of hope for the best. So what we do is we like at the very beginning, we have all these sliding scales that we offer. So we say something like, okay, we're going to do a little brand to buyer matching at the beginning. Is being a premium product more important to you or a cheap price, right? And there's a lot of different questions where depending on how they answer and how the retailer answers, we line them up almost like a dating service. In fact, we're releasing this Tinder-like app, which is for a buyer. So if they're on the go, they can swipe left for brands that they don't like, swipe right for brands they do. And basically, they can save the product to like Pinterest-type boards. And they can say, okay, these are the products that the VP of merchandising requested me to look at. Or these are the ones that I met at CES, right? And so it makes their life a lot easier being able to predict the type of products that they should be targeting.
So in this cycle of brand to buyer to retail, what does that timeline look like? What can entrepreneurs, brand owners be looking at and planning for from the start of the conversations to when they're actually in stores?
Well, I think I'll give you some of the best case scenario. Retail is really about, on mom and pop small stuff, like your first year out, getting into a boutique is pretty simple, right? There's no vendor docs. Things are done through attachments on emails, POs. And so, a couple months, 2, 3, 4 months is fine with them. For regional stores, regional chains, national chains, they're planning for, 1,500 doors, 3,000 doors, whatever the door count is. They can't just slot in products whenever they want. So they have a review, which is typically once a year. Sometimes it's not even every year. And then sometimes they have cut-ins, which is every 6 months, and where they're just trying to get rid of the least performing SKU and slot in something else. And so really what you're trying to do is it's a very similar analogy to like if I was going to go plant a garden. Like I want to plant all the seeds, and I can't harvest those seeds at 3 or 4 months. Like usually, like the best case scenario is at goal zero, right? So like we'd go in, and for the first 6 months, we'd have all these emails sent back from our HR team of like what our daily sales rate was. It was 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then all of a sudden it was like $100. All right, cool, we sold it to somebody. And then what had happened is we had planted all these seeds with these different retailers, and then they started ordering at month 9, 10, 11, 12, and you kind of just saw it all take off. But we couldn't have harvested any quicker than that. And the same thing, we've seen this play out with a lot of the other companies that we've built. We did the same thing with another Shark Tank company, Spatty. Same thing, right? It was just for the first 10 months, it was like, okay, we've got the first 2 or 3 chains on finally. And then the 4 or 5 months after that, it was like another 8. And that's really your best case scenario. But you really have to get to know the retailer. They have to feel comfortable with who you are before, a whole cycle before they're actually ever going to, purchase from you.
So as entrepreneurs are going in and looking at retail agreements, are there things that they should keep an eye out for? Are there specific terms that you would recommend they don't agree to? Or are there, what should they look for in these retail agreements to make sure they're protected on the brand side?
So all the different retailers have slightly different terminology. So you could have things like pay on scan, which is what Walgreens does. So they always kind of float the PO, and they pay by the time you order the second thing, they're finally paying the first PO. So you never really get paid off until the very end. That's a killer. So I had to stay away from stuff like that. Anything over net 30 is pretty aggressive from the retailer. And I think if you can get something where it's in the net 30 range, I think it's pretty good. As far as like allowances are concerned, all retailers are going to want some sort of defective allowance, maybe 2 or 3%, and maybe a marketing allowance of a couple percent. But you should know what the retailer is going to be asking for before you give them the price list, because you're going to want to bake that in. Otherwise, you're going to get caught where your margins aren't going to justify how much time and energy it actually takes to get the product into stores. And if you're getting consignment or returns, it could just kill your business. So it's a lot better just to pick up one retailer that has good terms, that has good sell-through, than it is 5 retailers that one of them could just kill you, right? So, yeah, I mean, I would say as far as terms are concerned, there's kind of the basic ones to kind of keep an eye on.
I want to shift away from the retail industry just a little bit and talk more about Volcanic Retail and both of you as entrepreneurs. I know you have a very unique approach about debt and taking on debt and building companies from a standpoint of profitability. Can you talk more about the way that you do business?
Okay, I guess I'm taking this one. I mean, a company that we started 10 years ago, it's at Hill Retail, and now Brand Rising is the name of it. But, you know, we've been around for about, 11 years, and that's where we built, the 500 brands. But I think because we started off in a situation where we were, the cardboard toilet story, like, so to speak, like fighting for everything, and working for the first few companies of brands, and we just didn't make any money. We've really kind of shied away from taking on debt. That's been kind of a big thing. I think we're meeting with some pretty prominent people, one of which showed up at our office, and he does consulting for CEOs in Utah. He's a VP of Vivint. And he looked at our books on Anthill, and he just said, I'll tell you this, no company in Utah County is doing this. And he was pointing at, we had 109 straight months or something of net profit. And it's because we just didn't allow debt. I think sometimes it's a little difficult on employees because we're adjusting things so quickly on the fly. But I think it's more important that they have jobs, right? And so even though we make a lot of different small adjustments, I think taking on debt is a little bit more difficult. I think there's times when it's justified, right? If you can guarantee that not guarantee, if you have a really strong, convincing chance that it's going to, you can eventually make $5 back instead of making $2, but you're going to have to, have some short-term debt. I think that you can certainly make a case for it, but it's something that we typically shied away from.
Yeah, I think that it's really important to allow yourself, give yourself the opportunity to have the pressure of making it work, right? Like these people that are employed by you, they trust you, they want their jobs. And if you are constantly using an inflated situation that they're not even aware of, that's dishonest, first of all. Like, you don't want to put your company or them in that position. So that's always been really important to us, and at the forefront of our minds is making very dedicated decisions, not just to our company, making sure it will survive, but also keeping our employees safe, in a safe situation. So you don't want to over leverage yourself, and if you can, just use that as a gift, actually, to make sure that this is on your shoulders, that burden or that opportunity, and I'm going to make it work.
And we talked earlier about, honestly, some burnout in the Anthill days that Jeremy was experiencing. And Jen, you mentioned that there were some ideas that you were able to bring to the table that helped kind of shift into a business structure that was more sustainable and probably healthier to move out of the burnout phase. Can you share what some of those ideas and structures were? Well,
at that time, how many brands were you running yourself?
Yeah, so we had a period where we didn't have employees, and Anthill was just me, and eventually, we started off with 3, 5 brands, 7 brands, and eventually we had 13 brands where I was their only salesperson.
Yeah, and I was sending emails during my kids' nap times. I was,
it was tough sledding. There was a part, and you could speak to this, where I before we hired people, I thought I had a brain tumor because I was extremely slow to respond, and it was working just like a normal computer, where it was just, there was not enough memory to go around. And, Jen brought in a lot of really, and this is kind of why she has the position that she does right now, but on expansion, you could cover that.
Yeah, so I would say, if you could put an image to this experience that we were going through, Jeremy was really good at staying in the present moment. If we were, putting this image together, as if we were driving on the freeway, right? He's looking down and making sure we're staying in the lane. He's making sure that we're like actually going forward. And I was more of the role of like, okay, but where are we going? What do we want? So I was more like, maybe in a vision, like looking at what we actually were trying to get to. And that was a really good team. So he was in the present moment, I was in the future, kind of planning and dreaming bigger. And one of the things that we needed to do definitely was to get the overload off of him. So something simple that really helped us was, and that was budget friendly, was to grab these overseas workers. And one of the companies that helped us was Upworks. So we still have our employees we have some from India, some from the Philippines, but like 10 years later, and this was our first baby step. So I think that was important for us.
And Jen, you are now the CXO at Volcanic Retail, and you deal a lot with the hiring and the team. What are some of the principles that you look for when you are hiring, especially if you're hiring overseas, as that's becoming much more common now for companies to be working with overseas employees?
So if I was I can't think of something specifically for the overseas workers that is like dead on for you, but definitely for the people that we work for and hire here locally, it's really important. Something that's always worked for us is not to necessarily hire on talent level, but to hire on values and grit. Like if they are consistently able to show up mentally and put forth the sweat and not have to rely on something fluffy or glamorous as part of their job, like that's really what's going to give you stability in your company and not put so much burden on you, as if you have people consistently showing up, willing to consistently put forth effort and sweat. And then as far as like we were, I don't know, the values is huge for us, because I don't know if there's not that much you have to like train. If you pull in somebody that's like already got it all, they might not even value you. They might just be hopping from one opportunity to the next. But if you pull in people that actually really, really have the same values as you and have loyalty to you, that's also, and giving them an opportunity will give you the loyalty that you want and that you need.
I totally agree. Like we've really kind of had the strategy to pull in people that were, college or just recent graduates that we see as like future executives and that are very moldable. I think as an overall theme for us, we don't care what your background is or your resume. I care how you're performing with us and what you can, what you can provide as far as a team. And eventually you just collect the talent where you have enough of those executive level people, because the other people weed themselves out, right? I was just reading about in the tech industry, all the layoffs recently, and I think it's 150,000 in the last month or so. And I was reading a morning brew or retail brew, and they're talking about, long are gone the days of, video games at work or whatever the deal is, right? And for us, our employees, they never had that. Yeah. But they've always had kind of a secure job. And for us, it gives them an opportunity to actually build out their careers. Like, what do you want to do? Okay, well, let's prove it. Let's build it out then.
Yeah. And Jeremy, I know you're passionate about the executive teams and your advisors. Can you talk to how you've been able to build out such a robust team of advisors and your executive team? How do you find these people and how do you build those relationships?
Well, that first talk up here was, that desired road or what one you want to go down is exactly the situation. Like, we really, when building Volcanic, we wanted to make sure that we weren't creating something that we wanted. We wanted to create something that that would actually be used. And so we, about 5 or 6 years ago, we had this idea of like, hey, I don't think this trade show thing's working out. So we took this idea to a guy named Curtis Toon, who was with Bain at the time. Or no, he was post-Bain, but he looked at the idea and he said, hey, you know what, Jeremy, there's no reason why this isn't a $100 million company right now. And so I came home and looked at Jen. I'm like, I think we should probably get some patents on this and start working it out. But it wasn't until COVID started where you had $38 billion of white space that got wiped out, And we're like, we better double down on this and, put in the initial money. But as we started building up the advisory teams, we wanted to build people that could contribute. So like right now, a lot of our advisory teams are people like former executives at Apple's, former vice president at Staples, former, head Costco buyer for 20 years and brand CEOs for 15 years, or people that actually had been in the industry and that could look at the different pages and say, this is what we needed when I was a buyer, or this is what brands have to have. And same thing with our investor team. We a lot of the investors are people that have built a lot of big retail stuff. But really, as far as the desired path, we really don't want to be in a position where we're like, hey, this is a really cool, expensive tool that we just put millions of dollars in dev, but nobody cares about it. And so we've had to change it a lot over the last few years as we've kind of developed it to what we're hearing, feedback on. So yeah, that's definitely a big part of what we do.
You two are you are obviously experts on building brands, building businesses, getting things to scale, meeting the people you need, putting people in the right places. What has been one of the best business decisions that you've made?
A lot of them actually, probably 3 or 4 of our top 5 have come from Jen. And one of them was just scaling. Like, it was super scary for us to go out and get an office and hire employees. Because, I was having anxiety of like, this is a little bit of a risk. You don't want to mess around with other people's lives. But we had to do it. And since we did that, and I think we started off at a corporate office, and it was kind of like one of these Regis buildings, which was perfect for us. It was great. It was, like a month-to-month commitment, and I just felt like, hey, I can do this. And really, we started off kind of with some smaller scale offices, and eventually we got to the point where we're like, what? There's a big office down there that we've really had our eye on for a couple, and this was out in the Riverwoods. We've had our eye on for a couple years, and should we move into it? And we had an employee at the time just said, you know what? It's kind of like a goldfish. The bigger, the place that you ran out, the container,
yeah.
The bigger you're going to grow.
Yeah.
And, I kind of thought there might be a little validity to that. And, we hadn't hit over X in revenue up to that point. And then the very next month, the month we moved in, it scaled, and it just scaled, rapidly. And so that was a big decision for sure.
Yeah, that was a big one. If I'm gonna kind of riff on your farming, example earlier, I am no farmer, I am no gardener, but earlier on, every time I would plant seeds, you're supposed to make more room for the seedlings, the ones that do sprout up. And if you don't, which I never would because I always felt so bad for those little tiny seedlings, just let them go up, I never created the space. So there comes a time when if you don't create enough area for yourself to grow into, you'll start dying. It's just a matter of fact. So that's something that we really needed to make that jump, and it was scary, but it was important.
I have loved getting to know both of you a little bit more, and I really admire and respect the dynamic that the two of you share as partners and as business partners. And can you talk a little bit to that, the balance that you have? It's hard enough to work with family, let alone a spouse, and you two work together in all different ways as investors, as partners, working for each other in so many ways and dynamics. So how have you been able to make that work for you? What balances have you found that keep a respect between the both of you and healthy in both areas of your relationship?
I think, there's no hierarchy at the home. It's just, there's been some times where I'm in CEO mode, and Jen will be like, "Oh, this isn't your business right now.
We're at home.
We got some things going on.
I am not your employee here."
And really, it's kind of snapped me back into shape, which I think is super important. But also, just be wise enough to know that you don't know everything, and that you like looking at Volcanic, for instance. I'd say 60 to 70% of the ideas that are implemented now were done by other people. And that's the reality with I think any SaaS company, let alone most businesses. And a lot of them come from Jen. And so really, if you go into a business just thinking, hey, what I say goes, and there's no real value in here, you're really limiting the potential of your company size.
Yeah, it's a very complicated situation when you work with a spouse. I think we have a little bit of an easier time because we know each other so well. Like, I don't know if I would recommend people working together if they're brother and sister or brother and brother or whatever. That one can be a little bit more messy. But because we know each other so well, I think, and we're very loyal to each other, there's nothing like, we just keep doubling down on each other. We are very good communicators. I think that's very important. And I think we already came into the business knowing that we respect each other. So we didn't have to gain respect there. We just kept it. And that was our bottom line, to be honest, is like, we're the team, we're the partnership. So we don't do anything that makes us weak. You know, we respect each other, and that makes us both strong.
Like, it's fascinating. Like, when we all have like different strengths and weaknesses. Like, and my weaknesses are pretty apparent to a lot of people. Like, we'll sit in an interview and like, I'll just talk right over them. And Jen's like, you know, Jeremy, it doesn't play really well, or whatever my flaws are. She knows it, but she knows I don't have bad intent behind it. But she's able to kind of explain that to people, which is really good. I think there's a lot of instances where we know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we can kind of prep people for that, and we can help each other kind of grow, which has been super, super helpful. I think early on, like Jen can attest to this, I was like a super controversial or confrontational, CEO. Like, I did not want, if I had an employee that was not good and effective, I'd just be like, okay, I'll say something nice to him, and then I'll just kind of hope for the best, let him hang around for 10 years. And I didn't want to start a fight, right? And really, Jen's kind of helped that.
I liked to fight.
Jen liked the fight. And really, it's kind of balanced us out where we're just like, okay, this is, as long as there's a really good open communication, then it's not really a fight. It's just there's proper expectations at the beginning, but you have to be really pragmatic with what you're doing too. But that, I would say I'm quite a bit different than what I started out with. I think I was a little bit of a pushover boss, but I don't think that served me.
I think one thing that Jeremy's really good at that I've learned from him is trusting your gut. And I think that really helps a lot is if you're really, I don't know how to put it, but I think it's really important to not pull back. Like, if you feel something, you go forward. And it's really important, if you're going to do this, to start out small, right? You don't want to make too many big moves at the beginning because you don't know the industry as well as you think you do. Like Jeremy said, you always want to go in with humility, and I think that was something we were gifted from God early on by our toilet, our portable toilet experience. But like, always going in from a humility standpoint is really important, and then making these little baby steps to learn to trust your gut.
But yeah, we don't second guess. And when a decision's made, I think a lot of thought goes into the decision, but when it's made, we never revisit it. We never even think about it. We just assume that we made the right decision. Because I think a lot of your time can just be wasted or bogged down if you're just second guessing your whole time. But just trust yourself.
And I would say, just with the human capital aspect, the fighting, right? I think one of my strengths is that I truly believe that there's no situation that you have to go into that you can't work out. Like, sometimes, yes, the answer is it's an ending of a relationship, but there's no need to ever lose respect for one another. You can always handle a hard situation with respect and with diplomacy and with communication. So I think that's something that we've always been really good at, is just talking through things, maybe not even coming to conclusions until you get enough information to make that conclusion, but always handling with respect as well.
I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing all of the gold that you just shared in the last 5-ish minutes. I'm going to open it up for audience questions in just a second. So audience, get your questions ready. But before we do, Jen, I loved what you said about if you don't give yourself room to grow, you will die. And the state of the world, and specifically the economy in the United States, can be a little bit rocky and nerve-wracking, probably for entrepreneurs specifically now. What room can entrepreneurs be looking for in their industries, or what silver linings can we be looking for on the horizons as we're building our businesses and starting these brands?
Well, I think the fundamentals, like I think in capitalism, you're always going to have ebbs and flows, but I think the fundamentals are super strong. I'm a really big believer that no matter who your president is that's in, or people you like or don't like, you're responsible for 95% of your success either way. And if you believe it's not the case, then you're going to find excuses of why you failed. And really, I mean, you have all the opportunity in the world to succeed, especially now. A lot of really cool tools that are out there that really help fast track you. But I think it's just mostly a mental game. I mean, if people trust themselves and work hard, and that's kind of what I truly believe in. Like early on in our career, we had a lot of failures right off the bat, but we were working super hard. And I felt like we were probably about as good as we could be at the time, despite our failures. And I think the thing is with interesting is eventually things find a way of breaking through and evening out. And it's kind of just a matter of time. And I kind of look back at that, the younger version, the 30-year-old version of me. I think, man, people probably, you had some lowly jobs or whatever, and people probably, were underestimating that version. That was probably the best version of me. I mean, I was up at 4 a.m. hustling every single day for 5 years. And I just think it's super, super important to realize that you're the author of your own destination. It's not somebody else or some new bill or some law that's passed. You can make it either way.
Yeah. Definitely pivoting when you need to pivot. Like, you need to know how to do that. But I was going to say the same thing. Like, given enough time, if you are putting forth the blood, sweat, and tears, and you have to pivot. Like we were talking about earlier. Like, there are road signs, coming at you. So if you're seeing something continuously and it's a pattern now, you need to pay attention to that. But then just giving it enough time to grow, right? To become what it's going to become. You have to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. Without that, it's not. You can't just fake something like this. A business has to have that in order to live. So
thank you guys so much for being here. One last round of applause and thank you for Jeremy and Jen Brockbank.